Hello, SRS community. Welcome to 5 Questions with Your Classical Educator. Today we have the seasoned instructor of our school, Mrs. Elizabeth Crispina Johnson. She has been with us from the inception of St. Raphael School, and she currently is teaching poetry within the Level 4 Liberal Classics course. So today we have her, and we look forward to learning more about her. Before we begin, any thing that you would like to add, Miss Elizabeth?
The first thing that comes to mind is to add what a joy it's been to teach at St. Raphael School. And I was blessed and privileged to meet Dr. Taylor at a homeschooling conference before he had actually launched the school. He was about to, and he had little brochures and he was handing them around, and he said, I don't know if this will go anywhere, but I have a vision, and so here's what I'm doing in September. And there it was. We went from there, and it's just been an absolute joy.
Yeah, that's something actually I was reminiscing, and those of you that received the principal email, I was reminiscing about as well, that, you know, Dr. James Taylor was on the cutting edge of the time. He really had this vision, and, you know, here we are. He is of blessed memory as Father Porphyrios. Here we are continuing that tradition, that vision that he had. So yes, most definitely. All right, so let's get to the questions. Question number 1, who is your favorite author and why?
First, I need to register a complaint. That question, really? Favorite author, favorite book? Now I know how our students feel when we ask them that question, because how does one pick? And if I do pick now, you realize that by the end of the interview, I might have changed my mind because it's very much the favorite of the moment. So having said all of that as a prelude, I'm going to start from the macro and work my way down to the micro, because I can say this. Novels that have themes of redemption and restoration have been my lifelong favorites. Lifelong favorites. I wouldn't have called them that early on when I was young, but they were there. The themes of restoration, redemption and restoration. So I think that, I guess I was drawn to those maybe because there's so much in real life that is bent, that does not work or go on our behalf, you know, be it the emotional, or the psychological, or the physical, whatever. Just all the betrayals and losses. I know that's a very bleak picture I'm painting, but real life has various degrees of elements of that all along. So back to redemption and restoration. I am, it may not be popular, but I am a fan and proponent of books that by their end give me a glimpse of beauty, creativity, friendship, camaraderie, basically bringing it down to a place of hope. The kind of hope that keeps me moving upward and onward, which is also sort of a lifelong mantra of mine, onward and upward, aiding me to move from those things of life that would beat me down to a place where it's a matter of getting a glimpse of all things new. Okay, so that's the foundation, that's the macro. Moving down in no particular order, I'll give you a couple examples, but I'll only talk about the winner, number one. And these are drawn actually from the books that I've taught with St. Raphael's School. So they are children's books. There are many other books on more adult reading level, but immediately, both as someone who likes to write stories and someone who likes to take children through stories, I went immediately to Mary on Horseback, The Wolves of Willoughby Chase, and a childhood favorite actually was The Witch of Blackbird Pond. We're getting there down the list in no particular order. A Wrinkle in Time. How many times have I read A Wrinkle in Time? And just got to keep going on that one. Charlotte's Web.
Yes.
We're into the top 3. Charlotte's Web. And A Little Princess. Sometimes it's called Sarah Crewe, British publishing versus US. And all-time favorite, The Secret Garden. Frances Hodgson Burnett. The theme of the book is definitely redemption and restoration, and it's just filled with all kinds of beauty, nature, all the things. So that's the long answer. Short answer: The Secret Garden.
Wonderful. I loved it. All of those that you mentioned, oh my goodness, aren't those classics? They're just so moving. Thank you so much. All right. What is your favorite quote having to do with education?
I cannot separate education. I mean, I could, but let me back up. In the realm of teaching what I teach, mostly early elementary. Well, I did all the elementary years and now doing poetry on those levels. I think this quote applies to everything, but I'm particularly focused on it for the age group that I have the most contact with in regards to instructing and guiding through classes. C.S. Lewis: since it is so unlikely that children, pardon me, so, I was about to say the exact opposite. Since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. That's not directly education-based, perhaps in the way that you were thinking in terms of posing the question, but as a part of education and encouraging young people to discover story and other things, many other things. I say, quoting C.S. Lewis, since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. And as an adult, I still try to keep my mind stayed on the brave knights and the heroic courage of others, be it the saints,
yes,
from the past, current saints, fictional literary characters, the people around me that I know personally. I have a brave knight in my family, and I have seen and have many people around me that display heroic courage. So they are the ones that I want to make sure that I stay in touch with and that the students stay in touch with. Important part of education.
Yeah, I love that quote. And I'm glad you actually pulled in through the lens of orthodoxy, right? Because when we think of that quote, we think of the saints, we think of the martyrs, we think of Jesus himself, right? And so it's so vital for us to make those connections in literature with students, but also further extending it into the Orthodox ethos. So very, very good points there. Question number 3. What hobbies do you enjoy?
I enjoy canoeing.
Yes.
I have a little canoe of my very own, a single canoe versus a kayak, though I often use a kayak paddle to keep it steering nicely. But it's a small one-person canoe. It's bright yellow, and I love to go on the lakes with it, but even more, I am more attracted to exploring inlets and outlets from the lake. I like to see where the water's coming from, and I like to see where the water is going. And it becomes very, very still on the places that I tend to canoe around here. Finger Lakes, got to put in a plug for the Finger Lakes of Western New York. Yep, we have 11 of them, and they're just amazing to explore. And the wildlife.
Oh, I'm sure.
All the wildlife. And I love to go up them and watch the beavers and the otters. And I won't even start listing the birds. Yeah. That's a favorite hobby, along with writing.
Yes. And of course, if you didn't know already, Mrs. Johnson is a published author for many children's books, which I even use in my classes in catechism. They're phenomenal. So, if you don't know that, look it up, and you can take a look at some of these wonderful books that she has created for us to use and learn about the Orthodox faith. What's one food or beverage you really enjoy? Now, I found this question the hardest of all of them.
No, it's the easiest.
It's just one.
Easy. One. I've got it. Easy peasy. English breakfast tea made from loose tea leaves, always, no sugar, a little whole milk, because if you use cream, it overpowers. I feel very strongly about this. If you use cream, it overpowers some of the sensitive flavors, hidden flavors of the loose tea. And don't take away my tea. Other than that, I'm good. It is, yeah, I won't say any more.
It is English. A lifeline for you.
I was wondering if it was okay to use that word, because that sounds like I'm putting it up on way too high a pedestal. But basically, yes, it is a lifeline. You got it.
Got it. Good, good.
Did not have to think. I go to bed looking forward to my morning tea.
Aww.
And it's just, yep. All right.
Beautiful. All right. Next up, last but not least, when and how did you decide to become an educator?
Thank you for asking this question, because it took me back. I needed to try to, sorry, I have noisy dogs who have decided to play.
That's
it's
okay.
Not my, yeah. But we're on the last one, so I'll talk fast. I hope they will remain somewhat quiet. Pup-pups, pup-pups, quiet. Real life, everyone, real life.
That's right.
I know that by college, I wanted to be an educator. But here's the interesting thing. It was mostly because, as I thought about it, it was mostly because I wanted to do childlike things. And so I decided to study early childhood education so that I could do puppet plays and read all the picture books and come up with games for learning. So when I decided I wanted to be involved in teaching, it was so that I could continue to play. I do not know what that says about me, but there you have it. And as far as wanting to be able to continue with having books as a part of my role as an educator, this goes, that love for literature goes way back.
Aww.
It says Baby's World.
Aww.
And that is I right there.
Adorable.
Loving my books from the very beginning and hoping someone will come and share the stories and the learning with me. So I think the root was there from the very beginning, and it's just unfolded, evolved, and developed over time.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. You know what? And I can commiserate with that. I can commiserate with, you know, wanting to continue the feeling of learning, creativity, excitement in teaching, in growing. And, you know, for me, after school was out, when I was younger, my parents told me that I used to have school in the garage. And we gather up the whole neighborhood kids, make lesson plans, give them homework. and it was like, you know, I loved it so much. I wanted it to continue. So
I forgot that. I did that too. And I played librarian. In closing, I will say, I lived next door to the quintessential stone rural library, and our property bordered the library's property. And that's, if I was not at the neighbor's farm and I wasn't home and the library doors were open, which is a rural library, were only a few times a week, that's where I was. And I would forget to come home for dinner.
Wow.
and so one of my sisters would come outside from our house and just bellow towards the library, telling me that it was time to come home. So yes, playing librarian, old-fashioned way, you know, with the little stamp and the cards and the whole thing. One of my favorite activities, along with pretending to teach.
And
thanks for that memory, Presbytera.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you know, Mrs. Johnson is an incredible instructor that really brings out from students their joy, their love of poetry, inspires them to continue to write on their own, gives them one-on-one time even to flame the fire they have in becoming authors. So we can't thank her enough. She again teaches level 4 poetry, level 4.1 poetry, and we're really excited. I'm really excited to have you alongside with us. I know that her and I really enjoy collaborating with each other, and I think highly of her as an educator and look to her for much support and mentorship. So thank you for joining us today again at our social media page for 5 questions with your classical educator. Miss Elizabeth, any last minute comments?
Thank you for asking me to do this, because it took me to a place where I was able to discover some memories that I had forgotten and articulate things that were sort of floating around in my head. But because you asked me specifically, it gave me the opportunity to think more about it and then have an attempt, a go at articulating those thoughts. So thank you, Presbytera.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, if you haven't registered for classes, do not fret. You still have time to do so. We are in orientation week this week. However, if you register for classes, you'll be able to actually view the orientation video if you happen to miss it, and get on track for classes beginning September 7th. We look forward to seeing all the smiley faces today and throughout the week as we welcome our students back for another fruitful year. So again, thank you so much, and God bless.